Systems often behave in ways that catch us off guard, not because they're inherently chaotic, but because we tend to misunderstand or oversimplify how they actually work. Our mental models, how we picture systems in our heads, are usually too shallow or too narrow to account for the full complexity involved. This leads to misjudgments, flawed predictions, and unintended consequences. One common mistake is focusing too much on individual events and not enough on patterns of behaviour over time. We are naturally drawn to what's happening right now, but systems are shaped by their structure, the relationships and feedback loops beneath the surface that drive long-term trends. By concentrating on short-term events, we often miss the broader forces at play. Another issue is how we define the boundaries of a system. In reality, system boundaries are rarely neat or fixed. However, in our thinking and in diagrams, we tend to draw hard lines, deciding what's inside the system and what's outside. If the boundary is too narrow, we overlook important interactions. If it's too wide, we can end up overwhelmed with irrelevant detail. Striking the right balance is difficult but essential. Delays also play a major role in why systems catch us out. These might be physical, like delivery times, or informational, like how long it takes someone to notice something and respond. Delays create lags between action and effect, and when we don't account for them properly, systems can start to behave unpredictably, often swinging back and forth or producing effects long after a cause. A related trap is assuming that relationships in systems are linear, that if you double the input, you'll double the output. In reality, most systems are nonlinear. Small changes can have big effects, and big changes might do very little. Sometimes a system's output depends on the most limited input, not the total amount available. This means you can pour effort and resources into the wrong place and see little return. Feedback loops are another area where systems thinking often clashes with how we naturally reason. We like to think in straightforward chains of cause and effect. A leads to B leads to C, but systems operate through loops where changes feed back into themselves. A change in one part of the system can eventually circle back and influence that same part again. This circular causality is hard to track without tools like diagrams, and it means that timing, direction, and structure of feedback are all vital to understanding behaviour. We also tend to misunderstand how resources behave in systems. There's a difference between stock limited resources, which run out when depleted, like oil, and flow limited ones, which regenerate over time but only up to a point, like fish populations. Trying to take too much of a renewable resource too quickly can exhaust it, effectively turning it into a non-renewable one. Another reason for surprises is that people in systems rarely act with full knowledge of the whole picture. Decisions are made locally, based on what individuals can see and what suits their immediate needs. This is known as bounded rationality. While each decision might make sense on its own, collectively they can lead to poor outcomes for the wider system. Finally, the way information moves through a system can either support or sabotage its effectiveness. When information is delayed, distorted, or blocked, people make worse decisions. Conversely, clear, timely, and accurate information helps systems behave more predictably and perform better. In short, systems surprise us because they operate in ways that are fundamentally different from how we're wired to think. They're interconnected, dynamic, full of loops and delays, and made up of people and parts with their own limited perspectives. By becoming more aware of these characteristics, we can start to see patterns more clearly and manage systems with more care and insight.